Hi, my name's Raphael Heath, the Head of Geography at the Royal High School, Bath, and this tutorial is about how to use the Web App Builder within ArcGIS Online. This is the basic view of ArcGIS Online with the layout you've got. I've got a map here with various layers in, tectonic plate boundaries, wild volcanoes, volcanic explosivity index for those volcanoes, and so on as proportional circles. So I've got a map and I'm happy with the way it looks, but I might feel that students will find it difficult to access all this information in the particular kind of framework and layout with all the functionality that's here, perhaps. So I talked before about how to create a very basic map viewer, which is fine. It's a great way of sharing this map in a very neat layout here. You can see the legend and layers coming up that students can tick on and off to look at various bits of information. But you don't have a huge amount of sort of functionality, analysis or control over this. So it's fine for certain things, but you might want to go further. So this tutorial is going to talk about how to use the Web App Builder, which you can see here. At first glance appears similar to the last view, but it's got a lot more tools in it. For example, it's got this summary functionality here. So what this particular one's doing for this particular map is it's counting the number of volcanoes within this view, which is 5,000, and giving me some data. This is the average volcanic explosivity index for all those 5,000 volcanoes within my view. So I'm actually being able to now zoom into my map and get information and data for different locations. As you can see here, this summary view is updating. So that's a very neat tool where you can start zooming in and out of areas and start looking at things in more detail. You can have other functionality in here, which I'll talk more about later, which gives students more control over the map. So how do you actually create one of these? If I go back to my map here, so I've created a map and I need to save it and share the layers of the map as appropriate. So if I want to make sure it's shared with everyone so people don't need to log in, I need to make sure I've done that as I go along, or using the share button, make sure that I've shared it with everyone and update the sharing permissions. You don't have to share it with everyone. I'm just saying if you want to use it without logging in, of course you can keep all these maps and web apps private, and then students and teachers will just require a login to be able to access them. So you go onto this button here, create a web app, and there's a whole range of web apps you can see that you can create. I've done tutorials on a number of these different ones to explain how they could be useful, and the one I wanted to focus on at the moment was the one at the top here, Web App Builder. So you've got the configurable apps. These are kind of preset and pre-made for you in many ways, and you've got this one tucked away, Web App Builder. And at first glance this might seem a little bit more intimidating. The word builder in there sounds a little bit like it's going to be harder work, and it's a little bit more tricky, but not very much more, as I'll show you. So you give it a test, name. So I'm going to call it just Test Web App Builder for this purpose of the tutorial. You give it a description. Just put test in the beginning here, and you put a folder you want to save it into, so you can easily find it and retrieve it later, and that's it for starting off. And what it's going to do now is going to open the Web App Builder configuration section. So this is where you can sort of set up your web app to do the tasks you want it to do in the way you want it to do it. So this will keep changing over time. So I've made this video in the summer of 2015, but as over time this will update and change and improve. So hopefully it will still, the tutorial will be useful to see the basic ideas, but you might find there's different layouts, different choices here. So the first thing you get presented with your theme option. So if I show you a different theme here, what are we on at the moment? Photopol. Okay. If I go to box theme, so this is a good thing to do when you start off before you sort of fiddle around with too many things in case it loses any other settings. Box theme just puts the information that you've got here in a little box at the bottom, whereas jewelry box theme, if I change to that one, it's going to look like this. And draw information on a side panel. Not sure what it's showing, so I'll ignore that for a moment. Let's just show tab theme. Okay, tab theme here shows a menu on the side here that you can expand and retract as another way of showing the information. So it's really just a layout choice. If I go to Launchpad, I quite like this one. It's a bit more spacey. Space Launchpad feel to it. And you've got little icons and things come up and down, and you've got a choice of where you move them. I quite like that because you can move things where you like, and the icons and stuff aren't too imposing. So let's say we chose that one, that's what we're happy with. You've got another couple of choices on little bits of layout where these buttons go, extra buttons and stuff on the side. There's not very much difference there, so I'll put them onto this one, and I'm happy with that layout. You can save as you go along, or save at the end. Obviously got a risk of things crashing, so I'll just keep saving as we go along. So the next thing is the tab choosing about your map. It will open the map that you started with you set up with, but of course you might want to choose a different map to work from, but I assume there's no reason to not work with that initial one. And you can also use the default map extent that's set up in your original map, or set a very specific view for when people open this web app, for where it's going to zoom to. So you might think, oh, I want it to zoom here on Indonesia or something in this web app. Let's just click that one, for example. And that's fine. So I'm just going to go on to attribute here. Other thing I tend to do at this stage before I forget is the attributes. So this is the title here. It's taken my title from my web map, which might be fine, but I could change it if I wish here. You can see the title changes. I can change the logo, so instead of having this logo I could have my organisation logo or something else in there, and other text here. So that's fine. I can add links, clickable links, if I want to take it to another website when people click on things. Okay, so let's go to the widget bit. This is the interesting bit. This is where the real power of it lies. You've got widgets in the controller bar. This is at the bottom, what they call the controller bar, which at the moment has got these two in. So if I go to here, for example, I can see it's got the legend and the layer list in there. If I click plus, I can add different, what they call widgets. These are things that will perform certain tasks when you click them in a map. So at the moment it's got layer list. I might say, okay, I want to put in a base map gallery into there. So people can change the background map. I might want to have a drawing tool as well. Should be useful. Edit's quite useful if you want people to actually edit and put data in and out of a layer in the map that's editable. There are geoprocessing tools. I'm not going to talk about them today, but if you want to play around with them, it does mean that people would need to sign in, and it would consume credits to use geoprocessing tools. But it's just quite a neat way of being able to get students to simply access a certain analytical tool that you might want to do, like summarizing data, counting within certain areas, creating buffers, and so on. Layer list and legends already there. Measurement tool will be useful. Print tool will be useful. The search tool I think is already in there somewhere, but I think I'll leave that, and we'll come back to some of the others in a moment. Okay, so let's do OK. So you can see now that I've got a longer list of these various tools, and they've all appeared down here, which means when I click on one now that I get a choice of base map gallery, which I didn't have before. Just come up there. The drawing tool gives me ability to do drawings and annotations in the maps and so on, which might be useful if I'm then printing it and want to have labels and annotations of things that I've actually engaged with on the map, which is quite good for students rather than just printing something they've seen, but actually trying to add some information to it through the drawing tools there. So I'll just save again, but I'm happy with that. I've got a nice set of icons along the bottom here. I'm going to go back to widgets. You'll notice there are a number of other widgets that are already preset here. If I don't want them, I can get rid of them. So the search was already there, which is why I didn't add it to the bottom. But of course you could have it in the bottom and not on the side here. So you can see here the search at the moment is coming up quite nicely and neatly in this location. I think that's quite neat and fine for the purpose of this map. Scale bar, you can see as I highlight over these things, they go red on the map and highlight where they're positioned, so I can see what they are and what they're like and change them. Each of these has a little edit here, an ability to hide them as well if you wanted them not to be shown. Not quite sure why. Maybe you set them up but want to hide them for a particular period of time till you're ready to release them, and configure the widget. We'll configure in a minute for something we'll add to this sidebar area. So if I go a little bit further down, you'll notice that I've got 1, 2, 3 at the bottom here, which correspond to on this side menu on the top right. So this is quite a neat place to put some different things. I could just equally put them at the bottom, but it's a nice way of spreading out some information and different tools. So I might want to put in a little bit more interesting tools within here. So I'm going to put the chart tool into widget number 1, and it automatically asks me that I need to sort of configure it. So I'm going to give it a title, chart of volcanoes. I can change the icon if I want, and so on, if I've got other images to add there. And I need to add a new task to it. So it says, well, what layer do you want to create this graph from? So I've got 4 layers in my maps. Some of them are going to be graphable and some of them not because of the nature of the data in them. So I'm going to pick this one, volcanic explosivity index, as my layer. So it brings up what looks a little bit confusing here, but it's not too bad. It's got the data source, I can ignore that. Chart title, volcanic explosivity index. I think I'll keep that for the moment. I can put a description in. So then it says display, chart display under here. So it says display values feature by feature, values by category, feature counts by category. Now what I'm trying to do, it takes a little while to play around with what these mean and get your head around them, but you can just experiment and see how they turn out, because you've probably got an idea in mind. What I'm trying to do in this particular one, for example, is I've got data on the volcanic explosivity index for all the different volcanoes, and I want to be able to create a graph which shows me the number of features, number of volcanoes in each category. So volcanic explosivity index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. I want to know if there's 10 of them or 5 of them in each category. So let's click on that one. They're going to count the features by a certain category. It says, well, what category do you want to count by? And I want to do it based on the VEI, the volcanic explosivity index. It could be based on a year or some other piece of information I'm trying to count. So you're thinking about what type of graph you're trying to create here. I'll put 3 types of graphs here to show the difference. A line chart wouldn't make any sense for this data because it's not really time or data or anything like that. So I'll pick these 3, but you could equally just pick one of these. And you can play around with these selection color highlight symbols there. And if I go under preview now, I get a sense of the basic type of graph I'm creating. So I can see here that this is just imaginary data, but it was basically going to have a certain thing at the bottom. In this case, I've set it for volcanic explosivity index, which is showing the principle of it. 1, 2, 3 something that's at the bottom. Oh yeah, it says VI2, and it's got the number of features. So if there's 10 or 20 or 30 volcanoes of this power and only 5 or 2 of that power, then I'll be able to see that in a graph. So that's the kind of effect I have. So if that's what I want, I'm happy. If not, I can, as I say, go back and play around with the look of this particular graph and what it's doing. So I'm going to, I might play around with selection symbol just to show you how this looks. Let's pick something like outdoor recreation, is it? So I'll pick a symbol like that, the mountains, just to show that it can look different. Okay, I think I saved that. Okay, so if we click on the chart icon now, it's recognised that it's got a chart set up for volcanic explosivity index. You can actually add several chart functionalities here for different types of chart creation if you've got many things you want to do on your data. It says use spatial filter to limit features. You don't have to use that. You can just click apply, which will do it for the whole map. But if I click on that, it says only features that are within the current map view, which I could use, or I can click this one and actually draw around areas using different tools. So if I use the freehand drawing tool, let's say around this area of Indonesia, I draw around it, and then it's only going to look at those locations. So it's going to do a little bit of thinking now, and then it's going to tell me the data. So it's produced a graph here. All the volcanoes that it's identified are now got this little mountain symbol by them, so I can see that quite clearly on my map which ones it's picked and highlighted. It's got a graph here. This is based on the real data now. I can see there's 456 volcanic explosivity index scale 2s on this map, and very few very big ones. There is one of 6 here. I can't quite highlight that. but you can see as I hover over them, they actually show me the volcanoes, so they actually come up which is which. So this has got 124. This one, volcanic explosive index, it's 3 of them, and I can see they are centered here in this part of my map. So it's quite a powerful little tool. I made different graphs so you can see how it could look. Same data in pie chart format and in bar chart format, horizontal bar. So that's the idea of creating a chart on there, and it's then given students a little bit more control and power to actually analyse that data, to look at patterns. That gives them a chance to sort of compare things. I've done it for volcanoes. That could be done for all types of different types of data, especially when there's large data sets and you want people to explore and look at the data in a bit more detail. Let's try another widget here. Another one is a query widget that could be fun to play with. I'll show you today. So let's add that one. Same idea, we give it a title, query, I'll leave it for now. Add new query task based on which layer, so I'm going to use that same layer again. So this time query is basically doing sort of a filter on the data. So it says add a filter expression. So I go here, I can change the name of it as well, but I'll leave it at that for a moment. Well, maybe, okay, I'll try to put it in there. So yes, it says what do you want to filter for, so I'll say yeah, volcanic explosivity number for my list of layers and features in that layer. Then I say is greater than. Now I could stipulate a field here, so it's set, or I could say ask for values, which means the student, the person using this map, will actually put in a value manually, so then they have control over it. So I say prompt VA is greater than, and I put, let's say, 128 or something. 128, I think the values are. Type in a number from 128 or whatever. Okay, so I can type in prompts instructions there. So I click OK. Result title. So I've just tested it. It says it's not happy because I haven't done something. So I should have gone under the second tab, result setting. It needs to give it a title. So VI volcanoes above the level you chose. So I need to give it a title for this result. I could sort the data. This is quite useful, and check that. Oh, I can sort by another field. Right, okay, I'll leave that. It's going to show the data that it produces, the filters, and but if I go under this, I could filter it by a particular factor. So let's say I had volcanoes of different dates, or something. I could have them sorted by year or something. This one allows me to tick on and on layers that it's going to show within that sort, because I don't necessarily want it to show everything. You can see there's loads of layers here and it gets a bit confusing. So I want it to show the VI and the volcano name, and I can pick other things that I think are going to be useful, so I'll leave it at that, maybe country and so on, to show you the principle. So now I think we're happy with that. So if I click query now, it says that I've created this filter, which for volcanic explosivity index. It says to type in a number for what I want to see. So let's say I just want to see the ones that are 5 and above, the volcanoes that are 5 and above. Use spatial filter, so yep, that's fine. As before, I'm going to just let's show you this. It says add result as operational layer. That means it will actually create it as a new layer in your map. I think that's only for people who've signed in, I can't quite remember, but I think that is, so that it actually creates as a layer that you can then access. So that's actually doing some saving layers on that in your organisation. Anyway, let's just do the same idea. Draw a particular area. Let's draw a bigger area this time, and then apply. So what this is now doing is picking out here. You can see a list of volcanoes, not very many of them, 1, 6, 7 and 7 volcanic explosivity index that were in this particular region, that were very powerful ones, large ones, and if I click on them, they will zoom me to the right location there and show me where it is. Okay, click on another one, takes me to that next volcano and where it is. So it's taking a while to load, but should load the rest of the map. I'm not sure why it hasn't. So it's a powerful way of being able to find information that's relevant to your map. I'm a bit blank. There we go. It's just being a bit slow. Okay. So that's the query tool. Let's go back to full map extent. So you're just adding a few more functionalities within the map for students to be able to sort of analyse and access here. I'm going to show one more tool that you can have that's quite fun and useful to play with, which is the summary one, but there's quite a few others you can play with once you get the basic idea and principles that I've shown you. So if I put the summary tool in, so summary of eruptions. It's 2,000 years. Okay, so I give it a title. It says which layer do I want to summarise, so I'm going to use my VEI one again. So you need to pick the right layer, and then it says, well, what do you want to summarise from that summary layer field? Yeah, I want to summarise the volcanic. Not sure if I need to add anything to that. Let's just leave that blank for the moment. So then I've got my layer I'm summarising. Sorry, and I add a summary field here. So I've got choices over the way it can summarise information, either as total sum, adding all the dots or features up in an area, or the average, minimum, maximum. So if I want to zoom to an area and get, let's say, what the average volcanic index was for those volcanoes, it wouldn't make sense to do the sum of them. That would be adding all the different volcanoes together. It's not really very logical, but if I do the average of them, and yeah, okay, yes, and under eruption number I click VEI, so I'm summarising the VEI, and then I give it a label, so summary of the VEI, and then I can add another summary. So I might go, okay, I was also interested in the displaying the maximum volcanic index eruption for that particular area that I've zoomed to, so I'll put maximum VEI eruption, and so on. And you can see the basic idea of adding different fields, different bits of information that you've got within that layer. There may be other things you want to summarise as well within the same layer. It doesn't have to be from the same field. So I'm just going to get rid of that extra one. You'll see it says show feature count. You don't have to have that, but it's quite a nice way of showing how many, in this case, volcanoes you're viewing at any one particular point in time when you've zoomed in. And display as clusters or not clusters. Let's have it as clusters for the moment so you can see the effect. Okay, so now if I click on this, let's move my map up a little bit. So now if I click on this summary layer icon, it's got a few settings in here, and it's summarising data for my map. It's sort of put it in a funny position actually, because it's put it right over the map. I wonder if I can move it. No. Okay. So useful to know. But you can see that it's counted in this view 2,096 volcanoes, and the average explosivity index was 1.69, and the maximum in this view was 7, a volcanic index explosivity of 7, and you can see the principle of zooming in. A little bit fiddly when it has it over this, but when it sits in the middle here, but you can see the principle of it. And it's changed as I've zoomed in. If I just get rid of this sec, you can see the area I'm zoomed to. If I click it, you get the summary data for it, so that's one way of kind of playing around with it, so it's not too intrusive on your screen. Now I've got 494 volcanoes and data about the summary of them, and it changes instantly as you move through your map. It will change and update, so it's quite a neat tool for very quick zooming around maps and seeing information and data. In a previous test I put this summary tool down in the bottom, and instead of sitting over the middle here, which I've not actually used before, it sat more neatly at the bottom, so I'd recommend putting this summary tool in the bottom tray rather than in the side panel, as I've just shown you here, so that it's probably a bit neater in the way it displays, doesn't obscure quite so much of the map, or at least not in the central part of the map, which probably would look nicer. So that's a little tip there. So that's the basic idea of it. I put save in. as I go along. As I said, any of these you can go back to and edit. So if I wanted to change the query or add a new query and so on to it, I get back to this screen where I can control it. And that is basically the most of the things you control here, but you can see you've got lots of things you can add. This will grow and change over time. They keep adding new functionality to it. The summary view has only come on very recently. So if I click launch here, I'll get a view of what this finally looks like. It's just opening up now. So we've got the view that I set within that viewer to center on South Asia and Indonesia region. I've got the layers that I've got pre-opened. I've got all the different functionalities that I can play around with here. So I've got quite a powerful looking map with some sort of analytical tools here that students can engage with, take the engagement with the map and the analysis of the map a little bit further. So it's a little bit more complicated, but it's also a little bit more powerful. So it provides an alternative to using just the basic map viewer or actually looking at the map directly in ArcGIS Online. So it's just an alternative way of being able to share and allow students to engage with maps. Okay, so that's an overview tutorial of the web app builder for ArcGIS Online. Hope you find that useful. My name is Raphael Heath, Head of Geography at the Royal High School, Bath.